we should recognize that, again, this topic is a key topic, and I fully understand that people are really wondering and worrying. But I can really say that it's going to be really a key concern for DCB, and they're really tackling it in the right way.
Do you think it will definitely happen? Will there definitely come a digital euro? Or do you think there's a chance it will still not go through?
Well, my own belief indeed is that
Hello and welcome back to another episode of In Check with Fintech. On this episode, we're joined by Clement Jozwiak, Chief Product Officer at Wero, to explore the future of payments and financial services. With over 15 years of experience in digital and payment services, he has focused on product innovation, and with a product-driven mindset, he has worked with financial institutions, specifically in areas like digital banking, open banking, and digital currency. Notably, Clement has been deeply involved in the last years in the development of A2A for merchants, but also in the recent rise of CBDC development, and particularly with the digital euro. On this episode, we discuss the rise of account-to-account payments, the impact of AI in financial services, and what open banking and digital currencies mean for the future of payments. If you want to stay ahead in fintech, this episode is packed with insights. So let's dive in.
So you've been in fintech and in payments obviously for a long time, but if you weren't in fintech, what career would you have pursued?
Good, thanks for this question. Very good question indeed. When I was younger, in fact, so if I even start with the very beginning, I wanted to be a football player. But of course, I realized very soon that I would not be able to be. That's for sure. But then, more realistically, I would have liked to be a doctor. In fact, my whole family, they are all doctors, practicing and so on and so forth. I love doing anything around science, biology, and stuff like that when I was younger, let's say. And I was hesitating between going into this direction, let's say, like being an engineer in the end, or being a doctor. And I chose to be an engineer, a bit like my father in the end.
Why did you choose to go that direction instead of the other way? Do you remember?
Maybe because I loved a lot mathematics, computer science, all those things, and even computers, and just programming. Already starting to try to do stuff on my computer, which was a very old computer, of course, at that time, but it was very, very interesting. And that's why I naturally went into this direction, even though I always look, on what could happen in the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, funny. Yeah, I remember when I was in university, actually, I always knew that I wanted to do something with economics, but at a certain point I fell in love. I think it was because of the movie Boiler Room, with becoming a trader. So I thought, okay, I'm going to become a trader. I'm going to study finance, do this as a master's. And then I started my master's like, this is not for me. And then I fell in love with the job of sales. But yeah, it's like these little moments in your life, I guess, which determine where you're going to go. And for you, it was kind of when you decided which direction you were going to go in from a studying point of view.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
Now, surprise, it depends to who you ask the question, of course. But basically, I'm doing a lot of sports, but really a lot. So as I said, I love football, of course, but I still practice football, by the way, even today. But one of the things I'm doing a lot in sports is running now, even more. And I do a lot of trails. And something that I do, and quite often people are very surprised about that, is that I can run for hours, even during night and the winter. And what I did very recently, by the way, as an example, like it was in last December, I did run over the full night from midnight to roughly 10 a.m. in the morning to do 80 kilometers, over the hills and in the winter, snow and all those things, which you can always think, but why would you do that? But still, I'm doing it because I love it. And I love sport for what it helps me to be well, in a very good shape, to control my adrenaline, sorry, that I do have also with the job. So it's really very important to me to find this balance. I need to do sports several times a week if I want to feel good.
Take off some of the pressure and stress.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's really good. And I love it when I do run quite a lot during lunchtime. It's very an habit that I'm having in France. And it's something that helps me to be very well for the afternoon, for instance, to keep, the same intensity through the whole day.
So let's double click on that midnight to 10 a.m. run. Was that on your own initiative, or did you compete in something?
It was a race, yeah. It's
okay.
a race. I'm very humble here. I'm not competing for the first place. Let's face it. But still, it was like roughly a 10 hours race. So it's more for the for doing it, you see, not to win it at all. So it's just it's something that I'd like to try to see, and also see what your body can do. Honestly, everybody's really surprising that how can you do that for so long, but you can do it. And everybody can do things that we don't even imagine. And it's the same, by the way, in work, by the way. It's also a way to go over what you think you would be able to do.
Definitely, yeah. What are the moments on an 80K race when you feel like giving up? Like 30K, 50K, 70K, or
roughly it's around between 30 and 40.
Yeah.
Where you realize that you are half of it. It's freezing, honestly. It's during the night, and then you can really wonder, why are you still there?
Yeah.
But then you should not hesitate at all. But this is where most of the people are also stopping. You rarely stop at the end, of course.
No.
It can be at the very beginning in case you have any injury or whatever, but roughly it's at this moment in time.
Very impressive. Are you working to something now as kind of your next race, next goal? Is there an extra distance you're looking for?
Not necessarily. I think 80 is really a lot already for me. I know that people are doing even ultra trail, up to 160, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm made for that, even though I could try, but I don't think so. I think it's because it's a lot of work as well to train for it. If you want to also be in a good health when doing it. But I think it's already okay. It's just that keep doing me other type of race, because it was like in the center of France, in the hills, not in the mountains. Doing that in the mountains, like in the Alps, for instance, it's something that is also very different, because you are really looking at everything around you, looking at the nature and all those things, which was not the case here during the night. Of course, it's a bit different, but still, it was a very nice challenge. Yeah.
Can imagine. Yeah. I mean, it is very impressive, but it sounds like kind of your boundary is at 80K then. Yeah. For me, it's about 16, but for you, it's at 80.
Yeah. I would say so. Indeed, 80 is a boundary for me.
Great. But yeah, so you've been in payments with Worldline. You started with Atos, right? 15 years ago. Then you went to Worldline. What got you initially interested in the payment space?
Yeah. Good question. So it was Atos, but in fact it was Atos Worldline. Just to be very clear. So it was, in the end, for me, it's a bit the same company. So I've been there for a long time, but it's a very different company. It was Atos Worldline indeed. It was much more around digitalization of processes, like I would say payment in a way, yes, but not even payment. And to be honest, when I came into this company, it was more for the localization and what the company was offering to me, less than payment, to be very honest with you. But when we came to payments, what I really love with payment now is that it's something that we all use, we all need it, but we don't really realize it. I mean, when you go to buy something, you will make an instinctive, let's say, movement with either your phone, your card today, but even with the cash, but you don't realize what's happening there, right? It seems very simple. You just give a note, whatever, and it's done. And it's so complex behind what needs to happen that is really interesting. And that's what I like here, is how to ensure that this very important moment of what you need to do to get access to anything in the end, right? How you can make it happen. And it has evolved so much in the past years as well. Even when we started like 15 to 20 years ago, the iPhone was not even there, more or less, I would say. Okay, the iPhone came late 2000s, but still, I mean, it was the very early stage. We were not able to pay with your phone, and all those things. Even the card payment was there. I can say it. I'm using a lot of my card, but still, cash was also a lot there. But it has so much change, that it's very, very interesting. You need to be up to speed all the time from everything, the market, technology, and everything. And that's for me really interesting. That's something that you never get bored, basically.
I agree. I think when I started in payments, and the regular listeners will get bored from me saying this, but it was indeed me. I didn't really realize what was going on in the back end. You think you just tap your card, or buy it at that time, which is also about 13 years ago now. You had to put in your card or swipe your card still. Type in your code, and then you thought, okay, I'm done. This is my checkout.
Yeah.
Still, you paying with a lot of cash. Online was kind of on the rise, but you still went in store a lot to order buy a lot of your goods. So a lot has happened since then. You're right, absolutely. Yeah. Also from I think kind of merchant point of view, in the sense of the importance that merchants see in payments has also significantly increased.
Significantly, and we can say it also as Worldline, clearly, because we are there also serving the merchant. And today, what matters the most for merchant is to ensure that they will convert the basket from the payer, and it's having the base payment option, the base payment mix, let's say, in the end, to ensure that it's going to be converted. And you cannot have one single payment type, payment methods over the world. it doesn't exist. Even if you look in the Netherlands, I mean, Ideal is very much used today by everybody. I mean, it's not the case in France. So you can say that Ideal will be used in France. So, but you need to adapt to the country, but still you need to ensure that you will provide the best payment mean for the merchant. And again, it may be different. And it doesn't mean that it's card. It doesn't mean that it's cash, of course. It doesn't mean that it's even crypto or whatever. And I guess we might deep dive into those type of rails, but still, it's something that is indeed key to focus on how the merchant can be really converting those back.
You're on the financial services side, so you mainly deal with financial institutions and
it's
banks?
True, but still, I mean, indeed. So just on Worldline, it's basically serving merchants and banks or financial institution more largely, right? I am in the financial services side indeed, but still I'm a bit in the corner of everything because a lot of things that we do with financial institutions will also help the merchant. Like if you look at the new rates of payment around open banking, for instance, this is really very useful for merchants. It's not only banks doing something, it's the merchant. So I'm really also trying in Worldline to bridge the gap, between those two, let's say, big entities to ensure that we bring the best for both banks and merchants.
They're very intertwined.
Yeah, exactly.
Banks and merchants, exactly. Yeah. Back to your career.
Yeah.
What would you say? I mean, you started as an engineer. Now you're CPO, head of product for financial services. Do you remember in those 15 years, was there any moment in time that was pivotal in the way that it shaped your career when you went from engineering to delivery to product management? Was there a pivotal moment that you can point towards? Maybe something that someone has said to you, or maybe something that happened or a decision that you made?
Yeah, it was definitely decisions. Let's be for sure. And I would say that those moments are happening all the time and still are happening today, in fact. And you said it, I started as a software engineer. So I have this background. I'm now more in product, but I also did some business, even sales stuff, I like to do a lot of things, different things. And that's also why I'm still in the company, by the way, because I'm able to do a lot of things, changing and not being really restricted to something very specific. And the moment that changed a lot was really when the company took this turn of product, because like 15 to 20 years ago, it was not really, we are making product. Honestly, let's face it, Atos Worldline by the way was not that. And we took this turn like roughly 10 years ago, a bit more. And for me, that was really interesting because that's when I stepped into the product and realized what does it mean to make a product. And that's where it's really, I really love it because you need to understand, to care about your customers, the people, what are their needs, their pain point and all those things. It's not only about, okay, you want that, I'm building it. No, I need to care about all the things, and you start to really need to onboard so many different type of stakeholders, people. It's not only about you, so it's a teamwork. And all of that, for me, I loved it. And the company allowed it to make it happen. It's even more true today, by the way, also with this role, but more globally, Worldline is doing it. And that's something that was really meaningful for me. And besides that, it's also the ability to experiment and try things in Worldline. I mean, I can say it and I can testify it because I did try to push for new rails of payment, for instance. That is really key for Worldline, and we might maybe come back to that at some point in stage. And the company allowed me to do it and to have the right people to make it happen. So to be agile, to be really playing like also very small company startups, which honestly I love. That's also what I'm looking for. And this combination also makes me being still in the company and find my way through what I want to do.
So it's you getting that holistic view, being able to do different things, as well as the ability to experiment and test things out that have kind of shaped your career.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, now Worldline is obviously a behemoth of a company, right? Worldline Financial Services, already made up of several acquisitions as well. Do you think that's still possible? Do you give that opportunity to your team as well to experiment, or is this much harder than it is now compared to when you were earlier in the company?
I would say, let's face it, I would not say that we are a startup. We cannot say it. Of course, obviously, we are quite some people. So for sure, everything is different. But still, I'm trying to give as much as possible to the people to make it happen. That's a real thing. So it's not that easy, that's for sure. But still, I think we can make it happen today in the way we try to build product, we try to experiment. And I think the fact that payment is evolving so quickly in many directions, many rails of payment, forces us to do this. I mean, to test, to try, to let it go if we have to, and so on and so forth. So that's what we try to do. And it's not only about, by the way, doing it ourselves. By the way, I think it's also very important to say we try also to partner even more now today. So we have become a big company, But we also need to work with smaller companies that are very playing on a very niche market, that have very strong expertise, for instance, that can help us. And doing so, I think it's also key not to try that we can, not to believe that we can do everything ourselves. It's not the case.
No, exactly. Yeah, you use the ecosystem, set of
for sure.
partnerships.
A lot of fintechs on the market are great. If you look at Europe, I mean, it's amazing in all the spaces. And it's not only purely about payment, even if you look at AI, for instance, because AI is one of the topics that will impact as well, or is impacting already the payment, but you also need to look into that. So it's really very interesting how you can really enrich the portfolio, again, in order to provide value for the customer. Because this is really, for me, the essence also of what we do in product, is to ensure that you provide the value to the customer.
At your offices here in Utrecht, you had a workshop, or at least a presentation, where I was also part of, and I was hosting a panel with Huawei, with RiskQuest, and with someone from Worldline. We were talking about AI and the impact it can have. Maybe taking a step back from that, if you look at AI and the impact it will have on payments, and not just Worldline, where do you think it will have the biggest impact within the payment space?
Now, I would say that some obvious ones are around the customer relationship, or customer services. This one is clearly obvious, but it's not linked to payment per se, but everything that you do between the customer and the consumer, let's say, like a bank, for instance, the consumer, or even a merchant and the consumer, that's something that you can improve. I mean, many things can be done in the way you interact. It can be automated. You can work on emotion. For so many things that you can do, even the chatbot stuff, it's going to be much better than before, because before it was not really a chatbot, not very useful. So that's one obvious one. I think another one is on the fraud side. And by the way, you mentioned RiskQuest, which is on the credit worthiness. This one is for me also key, because when you make payment, you want to ensure to have the minimal fraud, of course. And this is going to be very helpful. But be careful, because AI, will both help fraudster to do more fraud, but it can also, of course, help to fight against that. So I think this is an obvious one. And maybe lastly, it's around how to make payments more invisible tomorrow using AI. Do something that you know what you want to do, and AI or your companion or whatever, which is AI, will help you to make it happen before even you know that you need it. So maybe it seems a bit virtual, I'm saying, and too futurist, but still, I think something that could really impact the way we do things. So making payment even more invisible than it is today.
Exactly, yeah, which is hard to imagine.
It's very hard to imagine, yeah. Okay, so something will happen and you don't even know it.
No, exactly, yeah. A bit closer to home, if you look at your role in your team, do you feel that there will be an immediate impact of the use of AI with regards to building products from a product management point of view, or from an engineering point of view, or maybe the way that you do your job? Do you see significant impact there?
Engineering side of it, that's for sure, because when you are developing, I mean, there is a lot of tooling now on the market that helps you to develop faster. So that's really the case. And it's not, again, linked to only Worldline. I think it's very much broader. So that's already happening. And on the product side, it's more really looking at the value it brings. We should just be careful not saying that AI will work for everything, everywhere, for whatever, because I don't think it's the case. I think we should really just look carefully on what it means, and stop like thinking that, okay, I'm putting AI, it's going to improve everything, I'm going to be doing everything much better, faster, and whatever, because I don't think it's the case everywhere. So this is a bit the risk that we see today. Everything is AI, I would just be careful, but at least some things are really interesting to look into. But still, we are in product. We should always ask ourselves the question, how can I improve the value that I bring to my customer? And you can look at AI as one angle to make it happen, but don't do AI just to do AI.
No, exactly. Yeah, but I guess in your role, because you're indeed responsible for product, you'll see where and when AI needs to be implemented, and then rolling it out to your customers. It will come from you. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I'm trying to guide a lot the people in my role, more than saying, okay, this is what you should do. But you're right, at least ensuring that the people, that the product manager, basically, or even product marketer, are really looking into these type of trends, to ensure that when they consider the roadmap and all those things, or even discussing with customers, they just to take that into account. I think that's really what I'm trying to do. And AI is one good example, but I think you have a lot of other technological, stuff that are happening that are also important to consider, not only AI, I think.
So let's talk payments.
Yeah.
Let's talk about account-to-account payments. Maybe to introduce it, I mean, it's getting a lot of traction in Europe, right? I still think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I still think that there's a lot left on the table in Europe specifically. I think UK is a way more mature market than the rest of Europe, but there is a shift going on. What do you feel is driving this shift?
So it's indeed a very good question. I think what you said is very relevant. So we've been saying for years that it's coming in. It's not the case. Let's face it. But you're right. UK is clearly ahead. Not only UK, by the way. If you look at the rest of the world, you see some countries like in India or even in Brazil, so you have UPI, PIX. This is the same type of payment type, and this is working very, very well. But mostly linked to government push. So it's one of the drivers. If you ask me, one of the drivers is the way governments are behind that. So it's one. Still today, I think it's changing. It's a fact. If you look, even at what analysts are saying, you see this growth, and not only in the UK, even in Europe. And I can testify also myself from what I see from our customers. We are receiving more and more demands on such type of payment. And I think one of the biggest driver is the instant payment that is coming in, and it's there already. Right now, you can receive and send instant payment. It was mandated by regulation, and this is changing a lot of things in Europe. Because then you have the instantaneity. It's also free for the consumer. You don't have to pay for it. And then there is real value for implementing an account-to-account payment, because for the merchant, you have the value, you have the guarantee of payment. So all those things are really, for me, impacting today, the change into the adoption. And another one, I think maybe would be around the wallet. Wallet adoption is rising. We should be careful, because wallet is not only A2A. Wallet, you can have a card in your wallet, you can have everything, but still, using a digital payment, of course, A2A is digital, fully digital. You don't have any plastic at the essence of it. So, of course, it will help as well to go in this direction, to be able to pay much more via account to account.
You say government is a big driver.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a push and a pull, I think, right? It's a push that needs to come from the governments or from the merchants themselves or from financial institutions, and then there's the pool for the candidates. For the consumers who say, I want to use this payment method. Is there a factor of, in Europe, we maybe have enough payment methods to say, okay, let's also start using A2A payments? Like, do we need another payment method in Europe like that?
It's a good question, but I don't think we can ask this question this way, at least for the consumers, because I am a consumer, you are a consumer. I mean, we don't care, right? When you want to pay, you just use your smartphone, for instance, and you don't want to care about the rail or whatever that's behind. So that's also where we should be careful. It's always the consumer that is deciding what to use. So we should be careful in this direction. And I think in where it's very successful by government is because government are helping the merchant mostly to make it viable, and they are also helping on the consumer side. In this direction, I mean, you are almost obliged in a way, to use this type of payment. That's why it's working very well. But let's not forget that A2A, because we say A2A, by the way, but in the end, A2A, which comes from this PSD2, which was one of the biggest, let's say, revolution that helps to come on the market. It's not only about having a technical connection to banks, because PSD2 is about having a connection to a bank to initiate a payment, which is a credit transfer, either instant or not. In the end, if you want to make it a real payment method, you need to have everything around that. You need to be able to manage the refund. You need to reconcile, also for the merchant. Because today the cards, you have everything with you. You can do, when a merchant, he has everything around to be able to manage fully, let's say, the full end-to-end, let's say, payment chain. You can do the refund, you can manage dispute and all those things. You even have with cards protection for the consumers. So that's all those things that we should also be careful about, and that's why A2A also is not there yet, because you don't have all of that, this facility of making it happen. But I think in the years to come, for sure, it's going to change. It's going to come, maybe via regulation or via value decided that will be built on top of it.
So it sounds then indeed, it will be pushed, and then the consumers will hopefully be educated that they will start using A2A
I think
more?
What you say is very interesting. Educated, indeed. I fully agree with that. I think you need education. And because, again, today, when you speak to somebody, okay, can I make you an account-to-account payment, whatever, you don't understand what it means. And you will never. So branding and education is key. Also branding, I think. Because, for instance, in the Netherlands, when you use Ideal today, you use Ideal.
Yeah.
It's an A2A behind. Maybe you know it or not, for anybody, but still it's an A2A. But use Ideal. And this is what it makes it very strong. It's Ideal that you use. So the branding is key as well. So we should also be careful with that, because if you have many different branding, be on top of this A2A, you may lose the customers. So that's also something that we should work on. I think EPI, by the way, so the Wero that is coming in is also working in this direction. Will also help to have much more A2A payments, but it's something that also I think will come along the years. And let's not forget that the payment methods takes roughly 10 years to be successful. It can be much faster, like PIX and UPI, as I said, because of all the reasons, but still, roughly it's 10 years to become successful.
Ready for a dynamic explosion of innovation, connections, and game-changing insights? Money 2020 Europe, the ultimate convergence of money minds, is back to electrify your industry knowledge and turbo-change your networking game. Join the unstoppable force of 8,000 plus movers, shakers, and innovators from more than 2,300 companies spanning banks, fintechs, tech giants, startups, policymakers, and more. This is your chance to seize the reins of transformation and redefine the future of finance, all under one electrifying roof. Grab your pass now and secure your spot among the visionaries, pioneers, and power players. Use code PCN200 to save €200 on your pass. This is your ticket to unlocking a world of money possibilities.
So we are now in year 1. 9 more years to go, you think? Or where are we in the A2A journey? Which year are we in?
I think we are still in the first years.
Yeah, right.
Let's really face it. It's difficult to predict because, again, if you look at analysts, like 5 years ago, they were saying that this year would be a big year for A2A, which is not the case. Let's face it. But again, looking at where it's successful, it is successful in some very specific case. And I can really say it also as Worldline because we are serving merchant today. Because again, it's mostly for merchant, in a very specific case. And I think 2 examples that we see, it's first in the transport and hospitality sector. It's very interesting because basically it's where you have big baskets. When we have big baskets, an A2A transaction is very meaningful compared to cards because cards, you have limits by default for everybody, and maybe you will block your card or whatever. But when you want to purchase for 5,000, even for when you want to go abroad to make a trip, you cannot pay necessarily with your card so easily. I mean, for everybody. And we see that it's very interesting for the merchants. And besides those type of limits, it's also the cost for the merchant. Let's face it. I mean, the cost for the merchant, so if you compare to the scheme fee, it's very different. So that's one. And another very interesting use case is around bill payment. There is a lot of bill payment or invoice payment today that are done let's say, still offline, I would say, in the sense of I can send you a check, or it's paper, and all those things. It's horrible for as a consumer first, but also as a merchant. I mean, when you want to reconcile everything. And we see a lot of traction here today in those type of payment because it's very easy for the merchant and even then for the consumer to use it. They prefer that than just writing a check, send it by the post and so on and so forth. So that's really interesting. So we should still have in mind that A2A, it's for some use case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not for everything. We should not believe that. I don't believe it will be the case.
I think it's a very good point you make there because I see the benefit from a merchant point of view, very much so. But I think all the consumer cares about is getting something paid as seamless as possible, and you take as low as risk as possible as well, right? So if I look at why would I use an A2A versus a more traditional, let's say, credit card. So the example I would have is here in the Netherlands, buying something on bol.com, which is the eBay of the Netherlands, basically. I would buy something there. I'm very comfortable to pay with A2A because I know I will get my goods delivered. I know if I can return them if necessary. Then I had to buy a lamp, which I accidentally found out was it was just a front in the Netherlands. It turned out to be a Chinese web shop. So I used a credit card there, and it turned out that it was a fraud. So in the end, I was covered,
Exactly.
So I think that's probably where I see, indeed, as you said, I think the applicability of A2A, let's not just generalize it and think we can do it anywhere. There will be specific use cases, as you say. So I think that's really important.
And you are educated because you know those differences between the cards and the A2A.
Yeah.
And I think most people are not. That's also then if I try to speak with some people around me in France, and this even protection with the cards, not so much people know about it. Honestly, at least in France, maybe not.
I also had to tell my wife; she didn't know either. So exactly. I agree.
Which is very convenient. But I think it's going to come for A2A or any other payment trail at some point in time. Those things will come through. I mean, you have to also have the same type of coverage. But still, indeed, the use case, I think we should really look at where there is a need. If you also want adoption, that's the best way to make it happen anyway.
But we have determined and we all agree that A2A payments is a means of payment that is necessary.
Yes, I think so. And besides that, the fact that I'm not, by the way, for or against cars, saying that, that's for sure. Let's face it. It's just that it brings a lot of innovation. I mean, it's changed the way we do things. I mean, it helps it forces even the big schemes to make things differently. You have the wallet now, and again, you can have cards or non-cards. I mean, it helps us to go in a digital way.
Yeah.
Still, even though at the end you could say, okay, it's only a small portion of the payment. I think analysts said that potentially, like in the years to come, it could be around, I think, 15% to 20%, but no more. It's not so much in the end. But still, it's there. I mean, it means that it makes sense. So I would be indeed very careful on that. Yeah.
I think I realize often enough that I just live in a bubble in the Netherlands where payment is super easy and you can pay with all different payment methods. We already have A2A, so why would we need another one? But there is obviously countries which are maybe less developed or have less opportunities with regards to payments. It's less seamless as it is here.
Yeah. And indeed, also what you say is also very interesting because you're right. In the Netherlands, also in the Nordics, by the way, I think you are very well ahead on this one. But if you look at other countries in Europe, so sometimes either card payment is very present, or either sometimes cash is very present. So let's not forget that removing cash, so you need to have another payment mean, and potentially A2A could take some of these, cards could take some of these. But also on the card side, if you go in the Eastern Europe, for instance, the fees are very high for the merchant. Mm-hmm. So there is even more traction for them, to potentially have something else to. So of course it might change in the years to come. The scheme might react differently, but still it's the case today. So that's why the traction is very different depending on the country and depending on the use case. And in some countries, you only have one payment method. You can only pay with your Visa or your MasterCard. So you have no choice. And I think providing options for the consumer, it's also our duty. And that's what we try to do also as well.
Some say that A2A payments will disrupt card payments. I think it depends on the country, right? If they will disrupt card payments or not.
And I would not say anyway that it will, even in every country. I think we must recognize that I think it will be very, very complementary in the end. But again, you're right. It depends on the country. Maybe some country, it will have a high take. It could be in the Netherlands and other country. But in some, it maybe not the case. It really depends on the culture, the mindset of the people, and also what exists before. Yeah. Because if you have a very strong brand, like again, Ideal in the Netherlands, I mean, it's a very, very strong brand. I mean, I don't think you would remove it so easily, right? So there is, it's anyway an A2A. I mean, in the sense of, but cards, it may be difficult to surpass A2A in this sense in the Netherlands. But on other countries where card or even local payment method, like in Spain with Bizum, for instance, Bizum is very strong. So that's why the branding and the payment types that are there are very important. So I don't think it's going to disrupt, that's for sure. Let's face it that it might take some part of the card in the years to come, in the sense that anyway, payment is growing. Doesn't mean that cards will have less transactions. Everybody is growing, but maybe the pace of cards will be lower, and the one of the other rails will be higher. But in the end, everybody will have its place. And I think anyway, cards might remain anywhere around 50%. It's a lot, it will not be removed. So at least that's what I see, or what we see for now. Maybe everything will change. That's what we see with AI coming in. You see, some things are changed. So we will see in the years to come. Yeah?
It's funny how payments is. You talk about Ideal and how it's hard to disrupt that here. Payments is almost part of a country's culture in a way. So changing that is very difficult, which is why I think Wero is having such a hard task to fulfill. Basically, to change people's payments behavior, to have them go at checkout and do something different. How do you see that?
Yeah, it's a very good point. Wero is starting with P2P. Wero is also leveraging existing payment methods. So, of course, Ideal in the Netherlands, but also in France, it's Paylib. So it's not starting from scratch, from nothing. So that's first. And secondly, they are really working on the P2P. And what we've seen from most payment methods is that they are successful when they start with P2P. Because you get the consumers. And when you get the consumers, you win a bit the battle, because then you can do whatever you want. You can convince the merchant, but guys, look, you have all those guys that can pay at your shop, so you should accept it. So that's much easier. So that would be more for me the battle of Wero. Be successful on the P2P, and I think this will be a first, let's say, milestone for them to see if they can really go further. But at least what I see for now is that it is promising for me. This Wero. But you're right, in some country, I think it will be very difficult. If you look at Spain again, where is not in Spain, but still, I mean, you have a part of the south of Europe, you have Bizum, you have Satispay in Italy, you know. I think it's very difficult to compete. As a consumer, why would I change? So maybe partnership will be key, by the way, there, for sure, for those guys to work together, because I think it's still key also to have a bit this roaming between the country. You know, I think it's really interesting, this cross-border, but I think, yeah, you're right. I think it's a very good point. Yeah.
Do you think that the success of P2P payments for Wero will be deterministic in its further success? Like if that doesn't work, then we can just pull the plug.
Well, that's my view.
Yeah,
but of course,
exactly. That's what I'm asking for.
I'm not that Wero, so maybe that's all the plans. But I think at least the vision of Wero is very interesting because they also try to expand beyond payment. I think identity typically is one of their topic in the years to come. But again, it depends on their success. But the vision is really interesting, I think. Even the link with digital euro, by the way, because you could wonder why instant payment, digital euro, who's going to win the battle? But in the end, everything is linked together. So Wero, I think indeed, I think this P2P milestone is a key one that should come soon.
I think that's a great bridge because I wonder why would a European Central Bank, why would we focus efforts on the digital euro and Wero trying to change behavior or trying to create a pan-European payment acceptance network? Why not focus on one over the other? Why do we have to think about two brand new things in a market or an ecosystem in a field where there is already so many payment methods to choose from?
Yeah, true. I know. It's a very large question.
I know.
Many things that could be answers. And again, I'm not in or against any of these. Just to remind as well, because even though I'm trying to explain, in the end, Worldline, our role is really to be there to provide the right rates of payments from the financial services side and for the merchant to get the best payment. But just to get the back.
Did you mention that?
So why? So still, it's a good question. I think people on the market are really asking why. Why we have EPI trying to come in and you want the digital euro? How are we going to convince or to explain to the consumer what it is? That's a very fair statement. But still, I mean, the ambition is different. I think. Digital euro is trying to find it's for the sovereignty. Let's face it. It's to fight against the big schemes and to ensure that we have really a payment scheme in Europe addressing all the country. Wero is only for a country. Let's not forget it. So if you first compare the two, it's not at all the same scope. Digital euro is for everyone. I think inclusion and all those things. It's a key one for digital euro. So it's mimicking the cash into the digital world, which Wero is very different. It's a wallet at the sense of it, even though it's relying on instant payment rail. It's a wallet. So for the consumers, they want to go into identity, all those things. So for me, it's a different objective, even though still the goal is to have a pan-European payment method. You're right. But still the ambition and at least the road they are taken is very different. And so that's why digital euro for me is clearly different. And it's also to get, as I said, to get central bank money. You know that it's, not everybody knows about that, but between commercial money, central bank money, it's very different because Wero relies on the commercial money, meaning the bank that you are having as a consumer at your bank. Whereas the digital euro is a duty against the central bank, like cash. It's very different. So, and you need and I will not go into that because first I'm not the expert in that, and secondly that's not I think the point. But for the overall stability of the financial system, you need to have a balance of the two. And as we go in this digital world, you will have less and less cash, so notes and coins. So this is also why you will need to get this. So that just to explain a bit the reason of the why, but still the truth is you're right from the consumer perspective. It's going to be a difficult one.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, one of the big struggle today also for digital euro to find the use case for the consumer. It's a bit what is being said today, and it's not an easy one. So that's for sure. But still coming back to AP or Wero and digital euro, I think synergies will be found because let's not forget that Wero is a wallet relying on a rail, true, instant payment. But you could imagine that the digital euro lands into the wallet. So you could have the two together. So it doesn't mean that it's competitive, that's for sure. Because digital euro, the goal is not to be a wallet for the consumers. I mean, to ensure that it's not a consumer-facing thing. Again, it's more a rail to ensure stability from the financial system.
True, but I think they're both significant investments that need to be made, right? For the digital euro, I think we
even
need to
more
build
for
a whole...
digital euro.
Exactly,
Right. It's massive investment.
And there's no guarantee that it'll actually be a success. It might be a similar story to, I think in the early 2000s, we had a initiative as well in Europe. I can't remember the name, where all banks got together and tried to create a pan-European payment network. It's put in a lot of money, didn't work out. That could happen with either of these or both of these projects, right? So again, I don't expect you to know the answer, but I'm just curious as to what the reasoning is behind, okay, let's focus on pumping in money in two different projects where there is indeed a lot of debate whether or not this is actually going to be.
No, true. And that's why, by the way, the banks mostly are, I would say, against. I say against, not to make it too general, but I think there is some resistance from the banks today. For one of this reason, clearly, in terms of investment, but also in terms of their role that they will play, because they see that as having more potential money that is not there, let's say, on their side.
Exactly, yeah.
So there is a lot of debate on this on the market. That's for sure. The ECB is trying to bring the right answers to limit the holdings and all those things, to ensure that it's going to be everybody's going to win at the end. It's not like because the central bank has nothing to win. That's not their goal. They are not willing to make any revenue out of it, and that's not the point. Of that. That's for sure. But the truth is, the hurdle there is a lot of hurdles. Let's face it. So first, from the regulation perspective, still today, even though ECB is moving on, there is no agreement from the legislative package. So it still needs to be done, even for the legal tender and all those things. So let's see what is coming out of that. Then you have the technological side of it, which is one also hurdle, because one of the things that's interesting for Digital Euro is that you will have a specific use case, which is the offline, which, by the way, makes it also different compared to the other payment methods, that we should be able to, I should be able to give you money like I would give you my a note, in the same way. And I could be in a basement or in the metro, wherever, with no connectivity. So I should be able to do so. So of course, there is a lot of things to look into to ensure there is no fraud, that you can make it happen. You can imagine that my phone, if I don't have any more battery, of all those things. So it's a very, very big topic, not so easy to solve. But again, that's the goal of the Digital Euro, is to serve everybody and to mimic the cash. So that's why they are really looking into that. And this offline could be potentially the use case as well that makes it different compared to other payment means. And by the way, Worldline was also very much involved into this type of topics, because we were selected by the ECB some years ago on this prototyping of the offline. And we keep, by the way, working with them on many things, because you have the rule book, you have all many consultations coming from the ECB on many topics. So that's something that is also key. Of course, it's not only Worldline, but being there and ensuring that everybody will find its place. I think it's something that is key for the market. Just to continue on the hurdles, because I was speaking about so regulation, technology. I think deployment as well is a key one, because if you want to pay at a terminal, at a POS, for instance, or even on the ATM, if you want to withdraw money, but potentially you need to impact everything, all the hardware and everything, which is not so easy, as you can imagine. The cost of it is really crazy. So let's not forget that decisions have not been made everywhere. A lot of things are being discussed. So for sure, we might see in the end some direction. It could be also like a roadmap, that you start with that and then you do some other stuff to avoid, okay, I do everything from scratch or from the start. Will not be possible, but still, it's also a big hurdle. And maybe the last one is on the consumer. So we said it a bit, but still the consumer. For me, it's a key one. We don't speak so much about the consumer when we speak about Digital Euro. We speak a lot about the rest, the role of the banks, the role of all those guys. But the consumer, we should not forget that in the end, as a consumer myself, it's still not easy to understand what it would mean, where it will land in my pocket, in my wallet, and so on and so forth, and how I would really use it. So that's, for me, should be the key concern of the ECB and all the actors on the market, to ensure that we find a use case. And again, finding the right use case will help to get the adoption of such type of payment type.
Yeah, because if I look at the concept of Digital Euro now, it feels like it is for people who still carry a lot of cash and want to find a replacement for that. And for me, it also almost frames it like you don't... If you mistrust banks, use a Digital Euro, because we don't gather data. We're not interested in your payment data, what you do with it, because it is like cash. So it sounds like there needs to be a use case found, and maybe it's not for all Europeans, but it's for only some.
All the European country. It is.
No, I know, but in terms of the use case, so where it actually will be used, like maybe you and me say Digital Euro, we'll never use it in our lives. But maybe there's other people who say, yeah, we'll use it all the time.
Yeah, indeed. But we don't even have the answer now.
No, I
because
know.
this is exactly the topic that have been discussed. Even the ECB is launching experiment, again, prototyping exercise to find the right use case. It's happening these days. Huh? So that's really interesting what's gonna come out. And I'm sure we will find some interesting ones again. And maybe, again, this offline would be very interesting to be used. Why not? But maybe others as well. So that still needs to be found. And I think what you said on the data is really interesting, because I think there is a big topic today on the privacy. As you can imagine, as a consumer, always the question, okay, but if I have such things in my pocket, I mean, it means that everything is being traced, and I will never be able to use like I did for cash. So nobody knows what you do in the end, right? But that's really a big topic for the ECB. In the design of Digital Euro, privacy is at the heart of it. And I think, and I can testify because I'm been involved into those type of discussions, clearly it's a key thing to ensure that it's going to be respected for the consumer. And I can say that, for instance, the central bank, so the ECB, will not be able to access or to identify the consumer. It will not be possible. It's going to be an identifier like an account, but that no more. And even on the PSP side, which is the banks, basically, the bank that will distribute the digital euro, even on this side, it's going to be very limited data to ensure that you keep the privacy. And on the offline, even more on the offline, it should really mimic the cash. So on the offline, you should not be able to trace back to whom you gave money. So that's really interesting. And I think we should recognize that, again, this topic is a key topic, and I fully understand that people are really wondering and worrying, but I can really say that it's going to be really a key concern for the ECB, and they're really tackling it in the right way.
Do you think it will definitely happen? Will there definitely come a digital euro, or do you think there's a chance it will still not go through?
Well, my own belief indeed is that it will go through. That's for sure. I think it goes very far up to now. I think it will go through.
Yeah.
But again, we never know because of all those things that are happening with the legislative package and so on and so forth. So we will see. But still, I think it's going to come through. It's for Europe. I think there is real. We have so much challenge around sovereignty that it might be one of the big reasons why. So still, question is, will it be successful? I agree. Is the investment worth it? It's also a very good question. But I think it's progressing well. And let's not forget that we speak a lot about the retail. So I didn't say that at the beginning, because it is the retail digital euro, which is the euro that you use as a consumer. But there is also another debate on the market, which is not so much visible, which is on the wholesale digital euro, which is something completely different, but it's more, let's say, I would say the bank-to-bank payment, where you have a lot to improve. And here, there is a very strong consensus on the market on the real need of this one, because it would help a lot, for instance, increase the efficiency of the payment throughout the different actors on the market, especially the cross-border one, to remove latency, to remove the fees, because today you have very legacy, complex ecosystem. So I will not go into this one too much now, because that's not what we discussed, but just also to re-explain the different balance on the market, because we speak a lot about the retail one, which is the consumer-facing one, but there is also another debate, which is much more, let's say, under the ground, because it's not so much on the public place, to be discussed, but it's also happening.
That would be a replacement then for a SWIFT, for example.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think everything is complementary. Anyway, SWIFT is also is on the world, around the world, which is not the case for now for digital euro anyway. So
true, yeah. But within Europe, as a European interoperable scheme for wholesale, it could potentially complement to, or maybe exactly, even substitute. Great. Well, thanks for that. I think this is there's a lot to unpack there. I think we could probably do a separate episode on wholesale and the applicability of digital euro. So thanks for your views. Maybe to close things off, if you look at kind of what the next 5 to 10 years in payments will bring, what are you most excited about?
Well, I think what we just discussed, honestly, for me, is a very exciting one. I would say CBDC in general, so central bank digital currency, is a very exciting one. So of course, digital euro is one of them, because it's really changing the payment landscape, and especially in Europe. If it comes through, it's really going to be a massive revolution. So it's the next cash, and cash was there for so many years. So it's really a big step forward, and it has so many impacts with everyone, not only the consumers, also the stakeholders on the place. That for me, it's a massive revolution, and it's not indeed an easy change, but it's very exciting, and I think it's going to be helping the world to evolve. And maybe another one is we didn't spoke so much about this one, but I think it's identity. In the years to come, so we know that identity is coming through. We have this European regulation with the wallet and so on and so forth. Tomorrow, the link between payment and identity will be very thin. And potentially, indeed, when you will be able to do the two at the same time, right? So that's something that for me is very exciting because it's how these conversions will happen. I think it's going to be very interesting to look at.
Yeah, we didn't really touch on that, but I think A2A is probably lending itself really well for that, no?
That's for sure. That's for sure as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think indeed that CBDC, if it works, it could be fantastic. But I'm not too jealous of the people who have to make decisions on this because it does sound like they're swimming against the tide. Dealing with cynics like me, it's not easy at all. No.
It's more the excitement is also much more from the technological or functional side of it. Because of course you're right, from the regulation of the legislative package is another not easy discussion also, all the lobby and so on and so forth, but more from the, I would say, from the payment processor side of it. If I speak for Worldline, I would say this is really a very exciting, as building the next, let's say, payment building blocks of the future.
Last question for me then. I think there needs to be more promotion around the fintech space and people building a career in it. What would be your advice to someone who wants to start or build a career in fintech?
It's not an easy question, to be honest. I would say we should be curious of what's happening on the market. In the fintech world, things are changing so fast, as we've seen, like in payment. It's just an example, but fintechs you can have in other type of market. It's changing so rapidly that you need to be looking at the market and be curious of what's happening, and don't be afraid of things changing, because things will change. That's for sure. And also, that's what helps some fintechs to grow, is to ensure that they really keep the pace. So be very curious on that and be resilient. I think you are under a lot of pressure on many things. You can see competitors coming in, disrupting your business models and all those things. So you need to be resilient and to face it, to dare to face it. I think it's, for me, something very important. Yeah.
And if you're not resilient, try some trail running.
Yeah. That's why I'm running a lot to become very resilient.
Thanks, Clement. It was great to have you, and
you.
to hear your views on all these things. Thanks.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to In Check with Fintech. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform or just drop a comment on YouTube. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe as well and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. As we wrap up this episode, we challenge you to think about how you can stay ahead in this ever-evolving industry. Whether you're a passionate fintech professional or just generally curious about fintech, there's always something new to learn and explore. Let us help you stay up to date with all things fintech by tuning in to our episodes.